let's talk how we install entry doors when we have thick exterior insulation. And the reason for that is you have thick exterior insulation here, you have thick exterior insulation on the foundation, and so that would make for a very awkward looking door. Very well, step number one, finish your roof opening like you would any other house that doesn't have exterior insulation. Make sure you put your zip tape, you roll the tape, you make sure all is waterproof, watertight, and all of that stuff. With that done, let's move on to step number two. All right, this next step is basically kind of up to you because we're talking finishes now. We're using aluminum flashing. We use aluminum flashing for two reasons. One is for aesthetics. We definitely want to be covering this ugly exterior insulation, and this is looking pretty nice for us. The other thing is, since it's aluminum, it won't rust, and then since it's aluminum, it won't burn, so we use it for fireproofing. As you can see, we have dug a little bit of a hole here, and the intention is for this aluminum flashing to be nailed right here and then go into the dirt. Once it's fully installed with roofing nails that won't rust, we will be putting in the dirt again. So obviously, because we have exterior insulation, we will be using these cigarettes. We'll talk about them at a later time. You can see we have this big opening, and it would look very awkward the way the entrance is. So what we end up doing is we add an extension. In this case, we put these pressure-treated LSLs. Actually, you can see the ZB. The Z stands for zinc bromide or zinc boride or something like that. But it is pressure-treated for the outside. What we end up doing, pretend we have put our aluminum flashing that I mentioned. It would go here flush. We'll be using some big 5-inch or 6-inch screws going into it, and then we will be putting some zip flashing on top of it to give it additional structural strength. And that cigarette I mentioned is exactly the size of this, so everything will be lining up nicely.
So here is how it looks like. Here we have the flashing installed, and we installed it with these roofing nails. So for the top part, we remove the cap, just so it stays flat. And then in the bottom, we install them like this. And then we just apply a layer of Rust-Oleum for some extra rust protection and for aesthetics. So now that we have the flashing going this way, then we install the extension. This is the pressure-treated LSLs. And what we have here are the holes for these screws. These are from GRK, and they are 6 inches. So they go like this, and they attach to the bottom plate. And then, just because I love adhesives and spray foam, I applied great stuff on each of these holes, just because we don't want any insects making holes in there. And then after that, well, we have one, this is like a single piece of a zip panel, and this is just like when you step, it all feels consistent and pretty sturdy. So that's what we have going on. So now the next step is to cover this step. So this is what I plan to do. This is kind of like a sleeve that I plan to apply here on the step. And the second part is going to be to cover this hole. So my idea is that this is going to hook into this top part, and then when we install it, it's going to hold it in place. This will go all the way down and it's going to get covered. So now let's just do it. So we are now ready to assemble. I have my two parts finished. They hook to each other, as you can see in here. So before we install them, please know that we are using this box screen. And now we just need to align it and put in some nails. We can now move on to installing the door. So we finished the flashing just by applying some very small staples in here, and then we painted them with a Rust-Oleum for a layer of protection. They are going to be covered, and what we're doing now is we are applying 2 bits of Lexel in here and then also in the corners. And we like Lexel very much for this application because it's a sealant, so it stretches, so even when you walk in the door and you are stepping on it, it's not going to crack, it's just going to stretch with it. And the other thing is that we like that it's pretty much invisible, so you know, even if we smudge a little bit, it's going to look good.
Check this out, the door is ready. But before we continue, let me give you real quick some tips as to how we set the door, make sure it's plumb and square and all that stuff. First, you need to make sure that your surface is perfectly flat. So you need to put a level on it. If it's not flat, don't insert the door until you fix it. It's going to cause you all sorts of problems. Then once the door is inserted, typically we insert shims. And we typically insert them by the hinge area because that's where the door is structurally stronger. Sometimes what we end up doing is we probably level it to the outside and to the inside. We insert a screw just to make sure it doesn't come out. And that's a temporary screw because once the door is not moving on that axis, we work ourselves around inserting shims or doing whatever is needed to make sure that it's perfectly square. Once it's nice and square, you can probably remove that screw, or if it's helping you, you can keep it. Next, roof openings typically on the upper side have at least 2 inches, so you might end up with a huge hole up here. And for us, at least, due to our extensions, we ended up filling it with OSB once the door was perfectly set, and then that way it's nice and flush and we don't have an opening up there anymore. Finally, how do you know that your door is nice, is properly installed? Well, first off, you need to open and close perfectly. You need to lock it and unlock it, and it needs to work smoothly. And then finally, another test is you kind of like half open your door. If it doesn't move like this one, that means you have it properly plumbed. So that's how you do it. So let's keep going. This is probably a little bit random with respect to what we're doing in this episode, but we just kind of have to fit it somewhere. And I don't know if you remember, like about a year ago in season 2, episode 8, what is this tank for, where we were doing like also other miscellaneous stuff, and we were collecting all the dead trees from the property, and we were putting them into one single place so that the excavator would chip them and turn them into mulch. And he said, oh yeah, I'm coming right away, I'll be there at night, so I'll be there tomorrow. So we ended up working really hard that day to make sure that all the trees were piled were piled together before he came the next day. Well, it's been over a year and he hasn't come. So what I ended up doing is I've been calling him over and over the year basically. And I said, okay, fine. If you don't come by this day, I'm just gonna get somebody else. I'd love for you to do it, but if you don't, I'll just get somebody else. And so he didn't come by that date, so I ended up getting somebody else. And finally, after a year, like I said, the trees have been removed, they've been turned into mulch, and now you can see the area where all the trees used to be. It's now very nice and clean. We are very happy about it. We asked the guy that came over to chip them to throw the mulch in here, because in this area nothing grows. And I think in that episode I was laughing at Marcela because she wanted to grow tomatoes. So maybe with that mulch the tomatoes will grow now. But yeah, let's take a quick look at how he took care of that, and let's continue with the ADU door. We have now installed the extensions for the door, and to be honest, we don't really need to go crazy on the spacing on these extensions. This spacing is 6 inch on center, and we're installing the 6-inch GR case. And the reason for that is because when we were experimenting on the shed, we were using regular lumber, and lumber is typically like all twisty, crowny, etc. So by putting this super tight spacing, it allows us to basically straighten the lumber. But now that we will probably be using all engineered wood into the future, pressure treated of course for outdoor rating, we don't really need to go that crazy because it is already straight and it comes out straight as long as the wall is straight. So the wall is straight, so we'll probably go up to 12 inch on center or maybe 16 inch on center. Over here, you can see how the detail comes down, hitting the step that we've done before, and then it all perfectly lines up to the insulation of the foundation and the future insulation coming in on the walls. Finally, here you will notice that we have this jamb, and then we have basically it's like a little step. So we're going to be adding a jamb extension eventually when we get to the final details to make it all basically look nice and flush. This door might end up being just a construction door while we finish. Eventually we might just get a nicer door as well.
And now with the installation complete, we only have 2 steps left. So we are pretty worried about fire in this area. So the next step is going to be to apply this product. It's called Master Flame. If you're not familiar with Master Flame, it's a liquid. You apply it pretty much like paint. And what it does is it creates a protective layer on top of the wood, and you can even use it in fabric and other materials. But it creates a protective layer, and if fire ever shows up, then the paint starts popping like popcorn, and it creates this additional defense against the fire. So that's the next step, and after that, we just need to apply some waterproofing, and that is per Master Flame's instructions. Now, up to this point, we are trusting that Master Flame is going to do what it says it's going to do, but we'll eventually run an experiment and do a video about it to see that it's actually working. So with all of that said, well, let's just finish this video with a time lapse of me applying Master Flame.